You begin by letting your breath fall into a softer rhythm, almost as if your body instinctively knows that this is a moment meant for slowing. In the dim quiet around you, you sense a subtle glow, not of light but of presence, a comforting awareness that seems to wrap the air with gentleness. You let yourself sink into that stillness, noticing how silence feels less like an empty room and more like a medium that holds you. In this early calm, nothing demands your attention. Nothing pulls or presses. You simply rest inside the openness, allowing your thoughts to loosen their edges while the world around you settles into its own unspoken lullaby. As you linger here, you begin to feel that even the silence has texture. It is not the hard, polished silence of shutting something out, but a soft, breathing quiet that feels mysteriously alive. You might imagine the calm surface of a lake at night, where the water holds its own steady shimmer, revealing nothing yet containing everything. When you gaze into that imagined surface, you sense that still waters are never truly still. Beneath the mirror-like calm, tiny currents drift, invisible to the eye but steady in their motion. This image settles into your awareness, helping you understand that the quiet around you may be just as deep, just as quietly stirring. A soft curiosity awakens inside you, rising like a tide that moves without urgency. You begin to wonder what lies beneath this silence that feels so full. You've heard before that space, true physical space, is mostly empty. But the more you rest in this moment, the less convincing that notion seems. Emptiness, in your imagination, begins to change shape. It becomes a kind of placeholder word, something we use because it is simple, not because it captures the fullness of what actually exists. Here, in the softness where your breath drifts and your thoughts settle, you begin to feel that emptiness might be hiding a delicate richness. You turn your attention inward, letting your awareness float in that subtle tension between what appears empty and what may be quietly charged. You imagine yourself drifting through a vast expanse of space, not the cold, sharp space of science fiction films, but a velvety darkness that feels warm to the touch. In this imagined space, nothing obstructs you. There are no planets, no stars, no drifting clouds of cosmic dust. Yet somehow the space doesn't feel barren. It feels full in a way you can't quite articulate, as though something unseen hums through it, carrying a presence you can only sense, not see. As you glide through this imagined dark, you begin to sense a gentle trembling, a shimmer that doesn't belong to light but to possibility itself. You pause, or perhaps the moment pauses for you, allowing you to feel that something is here. Something subtle and persistent. Something that moves even when everything else seems perfectly still. You lean into this sensation, letting your mind float on the thought that emptiness might be a surface beneath which countless tiny tremors live. They are not dramatic. They are not loud. But they are woven into the fabric of space like threads that give shape to a tapestry. You reflect on how easy it is to overlook such hidden motion in everyday life. You think of a quiet room in early morning, where the air seems still but is actually filled with tiny currents created by your breath, by the warmth of your body, by the shifting of shadows as dawn arrives. The room feels silent, yet countless small movements fill it, each too subtle to notice on its own. In the same way, the universe may be teeming with gentle vibrations that rarely rise into view. Their presence does not disturb the stillness. They enrich it. This idea invites a sense of intimacy, the feeling that you are part of something quietly bustling even when you believe yourself to be alone. You picture yourself lying on a shore at night, hearing waves that you cannot see yet knowing they never stop their rhythmic descent. That persistent rhythm resembles the faint tremor of empty space, a background whisper woven through existence. You let this parallel settle into your body, giving your breath a rhythm that feels anchored by something older than you, older even than stars. As you explore this sensation, you begin to understand why scientists speak of empty space with such wonder. To them, as to you in this moment, emptiness is not a void but a dynamic field, always active, always awake. But rather than thinking of it as a field in the technical sense, you imagine it more like the air before a storm, charged with potential and poised for transformation. Nothing visible moves, yet everything feels ready to shift. That readiness feels like a soft hum, a subtle vibration that your mind traces with gentle curiosity. You drift deeper into this awareness, imagining that if you could shrink yourself to a size smaller than atoms, smaller than the smallest particles you've ever heard described, you would find yourself in a landscape that never rests. You would see space itself curling and uncurling with delicate fluctuations. You would witness tiny ripples rising and falling like breaths. These movements would not be chaotic but graceful, as though space carries its own heartbeat. You rest in that image, letting the imagined pulse of the universe synchronize with your own breathing. A sense of warmth spreads through you as you realize that emptiness is not a place where nothing exists. It is a canvas upon which everything is painted. Without it, there would be no room for stars to form, no room for galaxies to spin, no room for life to unfold. Emptiness becomes not a lack, but a cradle, a starting point, a quiet womb in which the universe grows and evolves. Thinking of it this way makes the silence around you feel even more comforting, as though you are resting inside the same vast stillness that once held the earliest moments of creation. You breathe into this thought and feel it expand gently inside you. If emptiness can hold so much, perhaps the quiet you rest in now holds its own hidden energy. Perhaps the calm that surrounds you is not passive but rich with unseen motion. The more you lean into this idea, the more the silence glows, as though the very air vibrates with delicate potential. You feel yourself carried by it, supported by something soft and continuous that requires nothing from you except presence. And as you float in this quiet fullness, another thought rises softly, like a ripple forming beneath still water. A wondering about what deeper forces might be shaping these invisible motions, what hidden rhythms might be guiding the subtle tremble of space. You drift toward this question, unhurried, knowing that the story continues and the journey is only beginning. You rest inside that open curiosity, feeling it beckon you gently toward the next mystery, the next layer beneath the shimmering quiet of what seems like empty space. You begin this chapter as though stepping into a deeper layer of quiet, a quiet that feels even softer than the one before it. Your body settles into its own gentle weight, and your breath moves like a small tide inside you. The darkness around you feels welcoming, not empty but spacious, like a room ready to show you something it has been holding for a long time. And as you relax into that stillness, you sense a delicate shift, the faint impression that the space itself has a texture, a subtle fabric woven from something you cannot quite name. You linger with that sensation, letting it bloom slowly in your awareness. The more closely you listen to the feeling of space around you, the more it seems to whisper of hidden layers beneath the familiar surface of things. In the everyday world, you see forms, objects, shapes, bright things and quiet things, and it is easy to assume that these are the fundamental pieces of existence. But here, in this softened awareness, you begin to sense that everything you see, everything you touch, may be only the surface of a much deeper foundation. You imagine peeling back that surface, not with force but with gentle curiosity, as though lifting a veil made of light. Beneath it, you envision a landscape where nothing is solid in the way you once believed. Instead, you see something like an endless fabric extending in every direction. It is not a fabric you could hold in your hands, nor is it made of threads or fibers. It is a fabric of presence, a field that exists everywhere at once, continuous and unbroken, feels infinite yet intimate, boundless yet somehow closer to you than your own breath. This imagined fabric is the beginning of understanding quantum fields, the quiet structures that physics tells you lie beneath everything. The idea may feel abstract at first, but as you rest with it, it becomes more familiar, more natural. You picture it as an ocean whose surface stretches farther than your eyes can reach. This ocean does not rise or fall, does not begin or end. It simply is, and you float not above it, but within it, supported by its endlessness in every moment. Your breath softens as you picture a single ripple forming on that ocean. Not a wave with height and sound, but a faint, precise trembling, a tiny disturbance in the field. That ripple is what you would think of as a particle. A bit of matter, a bit of light, a bit of something that exists just long enough for you to notice. But it is not a separate object. It is not something sitting on top of reality. It is a motion inside the field itself, a vibration that shapes the field into a momentary presence. You let that idea settle gently through your mind, Particle is not a thing. Particle is a ripple. Everything you have ever touched or seen or known is made from these ripples, fleeting patterns of motion on underlying fields that extend everywhere. You imagine your hand, your skin, your breath, each arising from these delicate tremors. It is not unsettling. In fact, it feels soothing, as though the universe is made not of hard edges but of soft rhythms, woven from movement rather than substance. You float deeper into this realization, letting it unfold with the calm certainty of a tide. The idea that fields exist everywhere becomes comforting, like discovering the ground beneath your feet has always been steadier than you knew. Even in the emptiest corner of the universe, where no star shines and no atom drifts, the fields remain. They do not switch off. They do not fade. They stretch through every point of space, holding the capacity for motion even in perfect darkness. This idea brings you a sense of peace. There is something reassuring about knowing that reality has this underlying continuity. The surface of life may shift, may change, may dance with patterns you cannot predict, but the fields beneath everything remain quietly present, steady and reliable. You imagine them as soft, glowing tapestries layered beneath the visible world, humming gently with possibility. Your awareness drifts to the thought of multiple fields, not just one. Physics speaks of different types: the electromagnetic field, the electron field, the quark fields, and many more, each one filling all of space, each one capable of rippling in its own unique way. You picture them layered like translucent fabrics, overlapping but never tangling, each vibrating with its own quiet voice. Together, they form the underlying choir of the cosmos, a harmony too vast to hear but too real to ignore. As you let this image take shape, you feel the boundaries of objects soften. The world becomes less about separate things and more about patterns of motion. A beam of starlight becomes a ripple in the electromagnetic field. A breath of air becomes waves in fields that give rise to the atoms within it. Even the ground beneath you feels different when imagined this way, less like a solid floor and more like a region where countless ripples overlap and stabilize each other. The idea may sound complex, but the feeling it brings is simple. It reminds you that nothing is isolated, nothing is truly separate. Everything flows from the same quiet foundations. Everything rises from the same ocean of fields. And this interconnectedness, this shared origin, wraps you with a gentle warmth, as though the universe is holding you within a vast and continuous embrace. You drift deeper, imagining the moment when the universe first cooled enough for these fields to settle into their present forms. You picture them stretching outward, settling into their quiet, continuous presence, ready to ripple, ready to shape, ready to give birth to everything that would one day exist. The thought feels ancient, like a memory carried by the cosmos itself, and you let it wash through you without needing to grasp it completely. Your breath slows as you imagine what it might feel like to be a ripple yourself. Momentary, delicate, yet part of something so much larger. You envision the field beneath you trembling ever so slightly, carrying your existence as one small wave in an endless sea. It is not a feeling of smallness but of belonging, of being woven into the fabric of everything. And as the chapter draws toward its gentle close, you find yourself wondering what kinds of tiny motions fill this ocean of fields, what minuscule dances give rise to the particles that flicker into being and vanish again. You sense that the next step in your journey will take you closer to those fleeting motions, to the brief, shimmering visitors that appear and disappear like sparks in the night. You breathe into the question, letting it hover softly as you drift forward into the mystery of what it means for the universe to ripple. You begin by letting your breath settle into a slow, flowing rhythm, a gentle tide that carries you inward with each rise and fall. Around you, the vast quiet of space seems to unfold like soft fabric, stretching without edges, offering a sense of calm that settles into your chest. You imagine yourself floating in this stillness, held by something subtle yet steady, a presence that does not ask for attention, but welcomes it when it comes. As you rest here, you start to sense a delicate tremor beneath the surface, something faint yet persistent, like the soft hum of a distant instrument you can feel more than hear. This whisper, you realize, is not a sound but a vibration, a sign that even in the deepest seeming stillness, something is always moving. The universe, for all its silence, is never perfectly still. In the gentle darkness around you, you picture quantum fields spreading endlessly in every direction, woven through every corner of space, filling even the places that feel empty. These fields, though invisible, form the real fabric beneath everything you know, stretching through you as well, soft and continuous. As you drift deeper into this imagined landscape, you notice tiny flashes along the surface of these fields. They appear so quickly that at first you're not sure whether you truly see them or only sense them. But with each slow breath, they become clearer, fleeting sparks that bloom and fade in the same heartbeat. They feel like fireflies drifting in warm night air, bright for a moment, then swallowed gently by darkness again. These are virtual particles, you recall, brief guests arising from the restlessness of the fields themselves. You watch them flicker in and out, appearing without warning, dissolving without impact, yet contributing to the quiet shimmer of the space around you. Their lives are so short that they never quite become full particles, never settle long enough to hold shape or weight. And yet their presence matters, felt in the subtle movement they stir in the field, the faint ripple they leave behind as they fade. Their existence is a reminder that even emptiness has a restless heart, a quiet activity always taking place beneath perception. You imagine these particles as breath-like motions, exhalations of the field, brief and light. They do not disrupt the calm. Instead, they enrich it, giving the silence texture and softness. For every spark that appears, another disappears, a gentle exchange that keeps balance without effort. Watching them, you feel your own breath begin to mirror this rhythm. Appearing, fading, appearing again, never forced, never hurried. As you sink further into the scene, the rhythm of the virtual particles becomes a kind of cosmic lullaby. Each flicker carries a small story, a rise in energy, a moment of form, a soft dissolving. They appear because the universe allows movement even where nothing seems to exist. They vanish because their presence is too brief to remain. And through their constant dance, the fields beneath them stay alive, vibrating with possibility. You let your mind drift with them, floating in their quiet dance. You imagine following one spark from the moment it appears, its glow forming from nothing more than a temporary swell in the field. It brightens for a heartbeat, offering its small light to the darkness, then melts away. There is no struggle in its fading, only a peaceful return to the field it came from. The simplicity of its existence feels comforting. It reminds you that not everything needs permanence to have meaning. The more you watch, the more you see that these flickers are everywhere, like tiny breaths the universe takes without thinking. They rise and fall in an endless pattern, creating a quiet shimmer in the fabric around you. With each new pulse, you sense a deeper truth settling gently into your thoughts. The universe is not made of stillness, but of fluctuations so soft they almost escape notice. And yet they are always there, supporting the structure of everything that exists. You start to wonder about the energy that fuels these sparks. Where does it come from? What invites these momentary particles into being? You picture the fields beneath them, brimming with latent energy, restless in their own subtle way. The particles are simply expressions of that restlessness, gentle ripples forming on the surface of something vast and continuous. They arise not from chaos, but from the natural motion of the fields themselves, a quiet reminder that potential exists even where nothing seems to be happening. As you breathe slowly, you feel yourself sinking with this idea, the sense that beneath all apparent stillness, something is always alive, always shifting, always ready to become more. The virtual particles may be temporary, but the fields that give rise to them endure, stretching across the entire universe like a steady undercurrent. You imagine resting on that undercurrent, letting it support you, letting it carry you through the quiet expanse around you. In this gentle landscape, time feels soft, like a fabric you could fold in your hands. The flickering sparks come and go without urgency, without pressure. You follow their rhythm, letting their calm movement guide your thoughts. Each time a particle appears, it feels like a small reminder of possibility, like a tiny lantern lighting for just a moment to show you the shape of something deeper. Each time it fades, you feel a soft release, an invitation to let go of whatever you no longer need to hold. The space around you feels warmer now, touched by the glow of countless tiny sparks. Though they last only a breath, together they create a gentle luminosity that soothes you. You imagine this glow spreading outward, filling the vastness with a warm, pulsing shimmer. It feels like the universe's soft exhale, a quiet reassurance that even in the deepest stillness, there is life. As you drift deeper into this warmth, a thought rises like a slow ripple. What might these fleeting sparks become if they could linger just a little longer? You let this question settle gently, not as something to solve, but as something to feel. In the softness of this imagined space, you sense that the answer is not meant to arrive all at once. Instead, it hovers at the edge of perception, much like the particles themselves, present for a moment, then drifting away before you can fully grasp it. You breathe into that uncertainty, allowing it to become part of the calm. Perhaps the beauty lies not in the answer, but in the wondering, in the quiet curiosity that gently expands as you rest here. As the sparks continue their quiet dance, you sense that their fleeting glow hints at something deeper, something waiting just beneath the surface of these gentle fluctuations. And as you rest in that awareness, you feel yourself drifting toward the next question, the next soft mystery that the universe is ready to reveal. A deeper rhythm begins to rise now. You begin by letting your breath soften, feeling each inhale stretch gently through you and each exhale loosen the edges of your awareness. As you drift inward, you imagine yourself stepping onto an unseen floor that exists beneath all things, one that never lies entirely still. This is the domain of zero-point energy, the subtle, persistent tremor at the foundation of every quantum field. Even when a field is as calm as it can possibly be, when no particle dances upon it and no visible ripple disturbs it, there remains a faint vibration, a minimal whisper of motion that cannot be erased. You let this idea settle into your thoughts, noticing how comforting it feels to imagine a universe that never truly reaches perfect stillness. Even in the deepest calm, there is something alive, something awake. Zero-point energy hums not because of disorder or chaos, but because the laws of quantum physics leave no room for absolute silence. If a field were to rest completely, without even the smallest vibration, it would violate the principles that allow reality to exist. So the universe chooses instead to tremble softly, maintaining a baseline of energy that never fades, like the lowest note in a song that continues even when all other instruments pause. As you float on this thought, you picture the fields that fill all of space, invisible expanses stretching in every direction, woven from possibilities. Zero-point energy is their baseline, the minimum energy still allowed when every particle has quieted. This energy is small, subtle, almost shy in its presence. But it is everywhere, in every corner of the cosmos, filling even the spaces between atoms, planets, and stars. It is the background hum you never hear with your ears yet feel in some deeper, quieter sense. You imagine yourself drifting across this universal floor. It isn't solid in the way you know solidity. It feels more like a shimmering plane of potential, trembling just enough for you to sense its presence. Each tiny vibration is a reminder that fields cannot turn off. They remain switched on simply by existing, always carrying at least the faintest breath of energy. You sense this hum beneath you like the gentle resonation of a distant chime, its tone so soft it merges with silence. Your curiosity deepens, and you wonder what this trembling means for everything built upon it. If every field carries a baseline motion, then every part of reality is quietly animated, even when nothing appears to be happening. Perhaps this soft energy is one reason the universe never settles into a final, frozen stillness. Perhaps it keeps the door open for change, for creation, for the emergence of particles and light. You feel the edges of this idea glow warmly, like embers in a darkened hearth. You imagine zooming inward, far past atoms, far past their swirling electrons, down to the quantum fields that give rise to everything. At this scale, zero-point energy appears not as a single tremble but as a woven pattern of tiny fluctuations. Each fluctuation is like a ripple that begins and ends in the same breath, too quick to name yet always present. These fluctuations don't create lasting particles, not in the way you might picture them. They simply mark the restlessness of fields, the way a sleeping body shifts subtly even in deep rest. You picture yourself lying on this floor of quiet energy, feeling supported by it. It steadies you, reminding you that even the smallest movements of existence contribute to the structure of the cosmos. Without zero-point energy, the world would lose essential features. Bonds between particles might collapse, forces might behave differently, the delicate balance that holds matter together might change. This gentle hum is not just background noise. It is a foundational tone that helps shape reality's symphony. Breathing slowly, you sense how this idea mirrors your own inner life. Even when you appear still, when your body rests and your mind softens, something inside you continues to move. Your heart continues its rhythm. Your cells continue their quiet work. Your thoughts drift like clouds. Stillness is never truly total. It is simply a softer version of motion. And so the universe moves with you, sharing this fundamental quality. You let the rhythm of this thought guide you deeper, imagining zero-point energy as a kind of cosmic cradle, rocking everything gently. It does not push or pull with force. Instead, it offers a steady presence, a suggestion of motion that never fades. You feel the steadiness spreading through you, calming any tightness within your chest, loosening the weight behind your eyes. It becomes a soft reassurance. Even at the lowest ebb of activity, life continues. Your senses widen, imagining what would happen if you could somehow turn off this restless floor. Would the universe collapse into silence? Would fields unravel? The thought feels impossible because this energy is not an add-on. It is woven into the very structure of fields, inseparable from them. To remove it would be to unmake the fields themselves, to erase the stage on which all physics plays out. You feel a quiet awe at this idea, like watching a horizon expand beyond the reach of your sight. In this calm, you begin to sense how zero-point energy links to the virtual particles you met before. These particles flicker into brief existence because of the restless motions of fields. Their ephemeral dance rides the baseline vibrations, borrowing from them and returning just as swiftly. It feels like the universe is constantly exhaling tiny sparks, born from the restless floor beneath everything. You sense how all these pieces fit together, how motion, possibility, and existence intertwine like threads in a vast tapestry. As you relax into this understanding, you imagine the universe not as empty or still, but as quietly alive at every scale. The energy at the bottom of everything becomes a partner in your own stillness, a reminder that rest does not mean inactivity. Even now, as your breath slows and your thoughts drift, there is a hum inside you and around you, a hum that belongs to the very nature of being. You drift deeper, letting the tremble of the quantum floor become a kind of lullaby. It whispers that nothing is ever truly alone or motionless. It suggests that beneath every calm surface lies a pulse connecting all things. And as you hover in this gentle awareness, another question unfurls softly, like a leaf opening in moonlight. If the floor of reality never rests, what new patterns might rise from its ceaseless murmur? You allow this question to echo through you, not seeking an answer, only letting its shape settle. You imagine these quiet patterns as gentle waves forming and dissolving along the trembling floor. Perhaps some of them become subtle hints that guide matter, slight nudges shaping how particles lean toward or away from one another. You sense how even the smallest fluctuation might leave a soft trace, delicate yet real. As you drift in this widening awareness, you picture the universe as a vast sea resting on this shimmering foundation. Every galaxy floats on it. Every star hums above it. Every grain of matter leans against it. And you, too, are part of this grand resting, supported by an energy so constant it becomes almost invisible. It feels like lying on warm sand as the tide shifts beneath you, steady and soothing, shaping the world in ways you barely feel. You rest on this thought, letting its warmth carry you forward. And in the quiet that follows, another curiosity rises, gentle and unhurried. If this restless floor supports all things, what shapes emerge when fields begin to interact? You breathe once more, sensing the soft promise of deeper patterns waiting just beyond your awareness. You begin this chapter the way one steps into a quiet dawn, slowly, gently, with a breath that unravels the tension you didn't know you were holding. As your mind settles, you find yourself floating again within the vastness of the quantum fields, drifting toward one field in particular, one that feels familiar in a deep and ancient way. It is the electromagnetic field, the one from which all light arises, the field that wraps around you even now, whispering in frequencies too soft for your senses to detect. You feel it like a faint warmth along your skin, like a glow beneath your thoughts. You let yourself imagine the electromagnetic field as a boundless ocean stretching across all space. Even in regions where no lamp shines, where stars hide behind dust and distance, where darkness appears absolute, the field does not fall silent. It trembles with tiny motions, subtle flickers of energy that never quite disappear. This restless shimmer is part of its nature, woven into its very being. You sense these motions like distant ripples on a midnight sea, barely visible yet undeniably present. As you drift deeper, you begin to understand that light is not something that simply turns on and off. It is a ripple, a vibration moving through this field. When a particle of light, a photon, is born, it is as though a small wave rises from the surface of that vast ocean and begins to travel. But even when no such wave is present, even when no light reaches your eyes, the ocean itself remains. It breathes with potential. It hums with the faint energy that cannot be erased. You picture yourself walking across a dark landscape, the kind where the horizon has melted into shadow and the stars seem distant and few. Yet even here, where darkness feels complete, the electromagnetic field surrounds you. It holds within it the memory of light and the promise of light, as though every quiet place gently stores the possibility of illumination. You feel comfort in this idea, knowing that the universe never fully closes its eyes. You allow your thoughts to drift toward the behavior of this field at the quantum level. Each point in space carries energy, even in its calmest state. This baseline restlessness, the zero-point energy you felt earlier, means that the electromagnetic field cannot ever be fully still. You sense that this constant quiver is not noise but something more like a pulse, a gentle heartbeat marking the flow of existence. You imagine the field sparkling faintly with invisible sparks, each one a sign of its continuous life. As you float within this awareness, you feel how deeply connected you are to this light that never sleeps. Every atom in your body holds charged particles that interact with the electromagnetic field. Every sensation you feel, every thought that travels through your brain, relies on signals carried by this quiet, endless medium. Light is not distant from you. It is not an outsider visiting only when a switch is flipped. It is part of the fabric that shapes you, part of the space you inhabit, part of the world you move through with each breath. You breathe slowly, letting the idea settle. Light as a companion. Light as a continuous presence, even when unseen. You think about how much of the universe's history has been guided by light. How stars ignite by fusing hydrogen into helium, releasing photons that travel for millions of years. How those photons scatter through dust and gas, allowing galaxies to cool, allowing planets to form. Light carries information, energy, structure. It tells the universe how to grow. As you absorb this thought, you imagine the early universe. A glowing fog, dense and hot, filled with light trapped in a cosmic embrace. Over billions of years, the universe expanded and cooled, allowing light to move freely, stretching into longer wavelengths as space itself widened. Now that ancient light still drifts around you, passing through your body, through the earth, through everything, a silent messenger from an era long before stars and planets took shape. You picture that ancient glow as a soft, warm haze surrounding you, barely detectable yet always present. It reminds you again that darkness is never absolute. Light threads through all time, weaving moments together, carrying stories of creation across the vast distances of the cosmos. You sense those stories now, not as words but as a quiet presence, like a melody humming at the edge of awareness. Your mind drifts to the dual nature of light, how it behaves as both wave and particle. You imagine this duality as a gentle paradox, a softness rather than a contradiction. Sometimes light stretches out as a wave, filling space with its oscillations. Sometimes it arrives as a photon, landing with delicate precision. You feel this duality as a reminder that the universe does not need to choose one form or another. It holds both truths with ease. You too contain more than one truth at once. As your thoughts drift deeper, you picture the electromagnetic field interacting with charged particles, nudging them, guiding them, shaping the forces that bind atoms together. The field becomes a quiet architect, helping form the structures that make your body possible, that make the world possible. You feel gratitude rise softly within you, like a tide lifting your awareness. Even the simplest sensation, the warmth of a hand, the brightness of a sunrise, the spark of a memory, depends on light's endless work. You begin by imagining a narrow space, two silent metal plates suspended in perfect stillness, facing one another with a tiny gap between them. Nothing moves there. Nothing breathes. At least that is what your eyes might tell you. But as you settle deeper into this scene, your awareness softens, and you realize that even this narrow pocket of emptiness hums with a secret life. The Casimir effect, an unassuming whisper born from the quantum vacuum, waits patiently for your attention. You allow yourself to lean into that patience, to follow its quiet pull. You picture the plates floating in darkness, gently illuminated by a diffuse glow that doesn't come from any lamp or star. It comes instead from the subtle flicker of virtual particles, those brief, restless tremors of quantum fields. They appear and vanish faster than thought, faster than breath. In the open space outside the plates, these flickers dance freely, swirling and colliding in an endless, lively motion. But between the plates, where the gap is narrower than a human hair, only certain motions fit. Only particular vibrations, particular whispers are allowed. The universe, in all its ingenuity, restricts the rhythm in that tiny space. And because the vacuum outside has more possible whispers than the vacuum inside, a gentle imbalance forms, a pressure, a soft push, a nudge so delicate you would never feel it on your skin, yet it is real enough to move the plates ever so slightly toward each other. You imagine the pressure now, tender, constant, unmistakably present. Not a shove or a command, but a quiet suggestion from the universe itself. You breathe slowly, letting this idea settle. It feels improbable at first, pressure from nothing, force from absence. But as the thought lingers, it begins to feel oddly comforting. The vacuum is not a hollow void. It is a place where fields quiver, where energy never fully comes to rest, where possibility is always fluttering beneath the surface. The Casimir effect is one way the vacuum reveals this subtle vitality. It is as though the universe leans in close, placing a gentle hand on your shoulder, reminding you that emptiness is rarely empty at all. In your mind, you shrink down toward the plates, drifting until you hover beside their metallic faces. They extend like two vast, silent walls with only a tiny sliver of space between them. You drift into that sliver, expecting silence, expecting stillness. But instead, you sense the tension, soft, shimmering, like a held breath. There are modes of vibration that cannot exist here. Their absence shapes the space. The vacuum inside feels thinner, more contained, like a narrow hallway where only certain steps can be taken. Outside, the field is wild and open, full of restless dances. Inside, the choreography is sparse and measured. This mismatch is what creates the pressure, but you feel it less as a physical force and more as a gentle longing, a pull toward balance. The vacuum seems to be trying to even itself out, smoothing the difference between here and there. It is a balancing act without consciousness, without intention, yet somehow still full of grace. You imagine these fluctuations as tiny waves on a cosmic ocean. Outside the plates, the waves are wide and varied. Inside, only smaller ripples fit. The larger waves press from outside, nudging the plates inward. It becomes a tender metaphor. When space is limited, motion changes. When motion changes, the world responds. You allow yourself to rest in this metaphor, letting your breath follow the slow rise and fall of imagined waves. The Casimir effect becomes a lullaby of pressure and quiet, a reminder that the universe often expresses itself through the softest of gestures. You do not need loud eruptions or blazing stars to feel connected. Even the faintest tremor of the vacuum carries meaning, carries beauty. As you drift further, you imagine the plates slowly moving closer. Not quickly, not dramatically, but in a nearly imperceptible slide, like continents drifting over millennia. The movement is not powered by engines or by gravity in this imagined scene. It is powered by a difference in allowed vibrations, a difference so small you can barely grasp it, yet so persistent that it shapes real experiments. You picture scientists watching metal surfaces approach, measuring distances measured in nanometers, listening for the universe's quiet push. The thought brings a calm sense of wonder. Humans listening to whispers, learning from silences. You float between the plates again, noticing the constraints more clearly now. The vibrations that do fit within the gap seem almost shy, subdued. They form standing waves, held sharply by the boundaries on either side. You imagine each allowed vibration as a dimly glowing thread stretching from one plate to the other. Outside, the threads are bright, plentiful, weaving together in a lively tapestry. Inside, only a few threads remain, thin and sparse. The imbalance becomes almost visible, almost tangible. And you feel the pressure not as heaviness but as an invitation to notice what emptiness holds. Your mind drifts through examples, gently and unhurried. You imagine the space beneath closed doors where wind finds fewer paths. You think of small rooms with muffled echoes, compared to vast halls where sound swells freely. These analogies are imperfect, but they guide you closer to a feeling, a sense of how boundaries shape the dance of energy. The Casimir effect becomes a soft teacher, showing how even when nothing is present, rules still apply. Silence still has structure. Stillness still has texture. As you linger with this idea, you feel a quiet tenderness toward the vacuum, toward the idea that it is not idle or cold, but full of subtle activity. This activity is not chaotic. It is rhythmic, patient, dependable. Even in the deepest emptiness, the universe continues to sway in tiny, imperceptible motions. The Casimir effect captures that truth like a pressed flower, preserving a delicate imprint of the vacuum's hidden life. You breathe slowly, allowing the scene to dissolve around you. The plates fade back into darkness, leaving only the impression of their gentle meeting, of the pressure that drew them together. You hold on to that feeling, a reminder that forces need not be loud to matter. Some of the most meaningful movements occur in silence, born from differences so small they might seem impossible. Yet they shape the world all the same. And as you drift a little deeper into this unfolding quiet, you begin to wonder what other pressures might exist that you have not yet felt, what other invisible motions might be waiting in the subtle spaces of the cosmos, whispering softly, waiting to be understood. You begin by settling into the thought that energy can arise without any spark or fuel, as if the universe holds a quiet wellspring beneath every moment. You breathe gently, allowing the idea to unfold at its own unhurried pace. In the soft darkness of your mind, you picture the quantum fields that fill all of space, even the spaces you call empty. They stretch in every direction, silent and invisible, yet always there, like a subtle fabric supporting everything you know. As you rest within this image, you sense the first tremble of something ancient. It feels like a humming beneath the floor of reality, steady and patient, asking nothing and offering everything. You let that hum settle into your breath, letting it rise and fall with the rhythm of your chest, until it feels like part of you. You sense that this hum is not loud or urgent. It is more like the slow rise and fall of deep ocean water, a movement so steady it feels eternal. You imagine yourself drifting through that ocean, carried by a current that asks nothing of you. Every wave is a fluctuation, a small shift in the field, a whisper of energy that appears without a cause you can point to. You feel the beauty in that mystery. Not everything must have a dramatic beginning. Some truths just quietly persist. These small oscillations, these faint murmurs of existence, feel like the universe breathing. You listen closely, sensing that this breath has been moving long before you arrived and will continue long after you leave. As you follow these thoughts, you let your mind wander to the idea that each field holds a baseline of energy, a resting level that never falls to zero. This zero-point energy is like the soft glow beneath all existence, a glow you never notice during the rush of your days. Now, in the stillness, you give it space to be felt. You imagine it like a warm ember hidden under cool ashes, bright enough to guide you if you choose to look closely. You sense that this gentle ember lives everywhere, in the space between your thoughts, in the silent distance between distant stars, in even the smallest pauses of your breath. It is not a force that demands attention, but one that quietly sustains the world. You let this image grow. You picture yourself walking through a vast landscape made of subtle vibrations, each ripple carrying a tiny pulse of energy. Nothing dramatic happens here. There are no explosions, no blinding flashes, only the slow and continuous trembling of fields being themselves. You step carefully, knowing the ground beneath you is alive in ways too small to see. This thought relaxes you. It means the universe is always moving, even when you feel still, always offering support, even when you feel suspended in uncertainty. You let your shoulders soften, knowing you are carried by something older and deeper than gravity. You rest in the idea that energy without a source is not chaos but balance. It is the natural rhythm of fields seeking the lowest state they can reach, yet never becoming perfectly still. You imagine the fields as long strings stretched across the cosmos, vibrating faintly, resisting absolute silence. That resistance becomes a kind of music, the softest soundtrack woven into the structure of reality. As you listen, you feel a sense of companionship, as if the universe is sharing a secret with you. You lean into that feeling, letting it wrap around you like a thin veil of warmth. You breathe slowly as the thought deepens. These fluctuations, tiny and restless, are not random noise but the foundation of everything you know. They give particles their existence, shape the behavior of atoms, and help build the world you live in. You imagine these small tremors weaving together like threads in a tapestry, creating solidity where there should be emptiness, form where there should be nothing. You see your surroundings in a new way. Every surface, every breath of air, every moment of warmth is built from these quiet motions. You let the realization wash over you like a tide, slow and steady. You feel comfort in knowing that the universe supports itself through this effortless motion. It does not need to push or strain. It simply holds its own structure gently, continuously, with a patience older than time. You imagine leaning into that patience, letting it cradle you like a soft blanket. There is no need for urgency here. The fields do not rush, and neither do you. Everything unfolds at the pace of deep time. You breathe with that pace, letting your breath slow until it feels like part of the cosmic rhythm. As you continue to drift through this reflection, you picture the fields not as abstract concepts but as companions. They have been with you since before your first breath and will remain long after the last. Their quiet energy has touched every moment of your life, even the ones you thought were empty or still. You allow yourself to feel gratitude for that unseen support, that constant presence you never had to ask for. It feels almost like remembering an old friend you had forgotten you once knew. You begin to sense the possibility that this gentle, source-free energy might shape more than particles and atoms. It might influence the very structure of space, the way galaxies form, the way stars burn, the way the universe expands. This idea does not feel overwhelming. It feels spacious, like a sky that stretches farther than your eyes can see. You breathe into that space, letting it widen your awareness without disturbing your rest. The quiet motion becomes a kind of guidance, leading you gently through a universe that is still unfolding. Slowly, you imagine sinking deeper into the fields, not physically but through understanding. With each breath, you move closer to the heart of their quiet motion. You feel as though you are listening to a lullaby sung by the universe itself, a song with no beginning and no end. It asks nothing of you but presence. You respond by softening your thoughts, by letting yourself drift in the slow currents of awareness. The deeper you sink, the calmer you become, until you feel like part of the field itself, trembling gently with the rest of existence. You sense that this energy is not the kind that drives machines or fuels stars. It is older, quieter, more essential. It is the baseline upon which all other energies rise and fall, the steady hum beneath the symphony of the cosmos. You imagine it as a deep reservoir, an endless pool of calm motion. You lean over its surface, watching gentle ripples spread outward in every direction, carrying the soft promise of possibility. You rest your thoughts on the edge of that pool, trusting its depth, trusting its patience. You let the question linger, and in that lingering space you feel a new image forming, soft and patient. You picture the early universe as a quiet sea of trembling fields, each one humming with zero-point energy, each one waiting for the moment when possibility would become form. You imagine that before the first stars, before the first particles even found their identities, there was only this steady pulse, this gentle readiness. The thought fills you with warmth. It suggests that creation itself emerged from stillness that was never truly still. It is a beginning shaped by quiet motion. You begin this chapter drifting as though the universe has placed a gentle hand on your back, guiding you into a wider quiet. You breathe slowly, letting your awareness soften around the idea that even emptiness has a kind of gravity, a kind of influence, a presence that moves things without ever announcing itself. As you settle into this thought, you feel the soft pulse of space itself, expanding, stretching, relaxing like dough left to rise beneath a warm cloth. You imagine this expansion not as a rush but as a patient unfolding, a movement so gradual you sense it more as a feeling than as a motion. You picture yourself floating in this vastness, wrapped in a darkness that isn't really dark at all, but full of faint vibrations and soft stirrings. You feel how this emptiness, instead of pressing inward, gently pushes outward, giving everything room to drift a little farther apart. It feels like a cosmic sigh, long and unhurried, easing galaxies away from one another as though making space for dreams you haven't yet imagined. And as you rest within this sensation, you realize that this quiet pushing comes from the very fabric of space, from the vacuum energy that hums beneath all creation. You let your attention wander to the idea of vacuum energy, the energy of empty space itself, steady and persistent. Though invisible, it behaves like a subtle pressure, a gentle urging that coaxes the universe to grow. You imagine it as a soft tide beneath existence, lifting everything with a tenderness so constant you often forget to notice it. Yet here, in this quiet, you feel it clearly, a patient encouragement, an invitation to expand. You breathe into that image. You let it fill you with a sense of widening, as though your own thoughts have more room to stretch. The universe, you realize, isn't expanding into anything. It is simply creating more space from within itself, like a deep inhalation that never quite turns into an exhale. And this quiet breath is powered by the weight of empty space, by vacuum energy, working silently, faithfully. You imagine galaxies drifting apart like small boats on a calm sea, each carried by slow, steady swells. No wind pushes them, no engine drives them. Instead, the sea itself stretches, pulling the boats gently apart. This image feels soothing, as though the cosmos is reminding you that some movements require no force, no effort, only the natural unfolding of what already is. You rest your mind on that simplicity. As you drift deeper, you sink into the paradox. Emptiness has weight. Vacuum energy carries a density, a pressure, a softness that bends the universe's fate. You picture it as a faint glow beneath the surface of reality, a warmth that shapes the grandest structures without needing to be seen. And you feel how comforting it is to know that something so quiet can guide something so vast. You imagine holding a small object in your hand, a stone, perhaps, while knowing that the emptiness around it contributes to the way the universe expands. This absurd yet tender truth wraps around you like a blanket. It shows you that emptiness isn't absence but potential, a field of gentle insistence that reminds everything to keep moving, keep drifting, keep unfolding. You float further into this thought, noticing how vacuum energy acts like a soft background rhythm. You imagine it as a hum so low and continuous that you only perceive it when everything else grows still. And now, in this meditative space, you sense that hum clearly. It feels like the heartbeat of the cosmos, slow and enduring. You let this sense of rhythm flow through you. You feel how the universe's expansion mirrors your own inner quiet, both stretching without strain. Each breath becomes a small echo of the cosmic expansion, a reminder that you, too, are made of the same fabric that grows and changes with gentle persistence. You feel yourself resting within this harmony, carried by its softness. You picture distant galaxies shimmering at the edges of the observable universe, moving away from you with a speed that feels impossible yet serene. This movement isn't frantic. It's the nature of space itself unfolding. You imagine standing at the shore of reality, watching the tide pull everything outward. And in this vision, you feel no urgency, only awe at the patience of the cosmos. As you sink deeper, you reflect on how scientists discovered this quiet stretching, noticing that galaxies weren't just drifting apart but accelerating away. You picture their surprise, their wonder, their slow understanding that vacuum energy, even emptiness, holds influence. This discovery feels like a whisper revealed after ages of silence, a gentle shift in how we understand everything. You hold that whisper close. You let it settle inside you like a warm stone placed in your palm. Emptiness is not still. It has a weight, a motion, a purpose woven into its very nature. You sense this truth resting beneath your own thoughts, giving them space to expand just as the universe does. You drift now through a calm curiosity, wondering how deep this quiet energy reaches, how far its influence extends. If emptiness has weight, you think, then what does that mean for everything that rises from it? You feel yourself hovering on the edge of that question, unhurried, letting it glow softly like a lantern in the dark. You let your mind wander to the fabric of spacetime itself, imagining it as a delicate sheet stretched across an infinite frame. Every ripple, every shift, every subtle quiver adds to the quiet expansion. You picture the sheet gently rising, making more room with each passing moment. This rise is not forced. It is a natural response to the energy residing within emptiness, the soft weight that encourages space to grow. You rest in this image, feeling how effortlessly expansion occurs when the underlying fabric is alive with quiet potential. You imagine yourself drifting closer to the edge of a vast cosmic web, where clusters of galaxies gather like dewdrops on an intricate lattice. You see how the empty spaces between them aren't truly empty but filled with the gentle insistence of vacuum energy. This invisible presence nudges the filaments apart, widening the gaps, creating a slow and graceful drift that shapes the grand architecture of the cosmos. You feel humbled by this silent sculpting. As you float through this inner vision, you reflect on how counterintuitive it seems that emptiness can push things away. Yet, here in this calm space, the paradox becomes soothing. You understand that even in your own life, some of the most profound changes arise not from force, but from subtle shifts, quiet realizations, and the gentle expansion of awareness. The cosmos mirrors this truth on an unimaginable scale, teaching you through its steady unfolding. Your thoughts drift to dark energy, the name given to this mysterious influence that accelerates the universe's expansion. Though scientists do not yet understand its full nature, its effect is undeniable, shaping the fate of galaxies and the future of all space. You feel comfort in this mystery, recognizing that not knowing does not diminish the beauty of understanding what you can. In fact, the mystery makes the quiet expansion feel even more intimate, as though the universe is sharing a secret it reveals only through feeling. You relax further into the awareness that everything you see, every star, every planet, every atom, is carried by this expansion. You sense how each existence floats within a gently stretching canvas, held by a force so quiet it is almost forgotten. Yet now, as you drift through this chapter, you feel its presence clearly, like a faint breeze that has always been there, but only now touches your skin. You imagine time itself flowing through this expanding space, stretching alongside it. Moments feel longer here, slower, more spacious. You sense how the universe's growth gives time room to breathe, just as it gives galaxies room to drift. And with this sensation, you feel your own inner time slow, relax, widen, soften. You linger in this connection, realizing that the weight of empty space is not heavy at all. It is a gentle form of guidance, a subtle encouragement that helps the cosmos evolve. You hold that thought carefully, sensing that it may lead you into yet another deeper question, one that waits like a quiet star just beyond your field of vision. You drift toward that question now, You begin this chapter floating in a calm darkness that does not feel empty at all, but quietly structured, like a soft cloth stretching outward in every direction. You sense, without effort, that this fabric beneath everything, this thing we call space-time, is not rigid, not frozen, not separate from the motion of the universe. Instead, it bends and curves, responding to energy the way a delicate sheet responds to a fingertip. You breathe gently, imagining your own presence making the faintest dent in this cosmic fabric, a reminder that everything, no matter how small, has a way of shaping the world around it. As you drift deeper into this vision, you picture energy as a warm glow resting in your hands. Even the tiniest spark has influence, not because it pulls on anything, but because it asks space-time to bow, to soften, to wrap itself gently around that warmth. Gravity, you realize, is not a force in the traditional sense. It is a shape, a curve, a quiet change in the pathways things naturally follow. This idea settles over you like a thin blanket, familiar yet deeply mysterious, comforting in its simplicity and profound in its implications. You imagine placing a small, glowing sphere on a vast, stretchy sheet. The sheet curves beneath it, and suddenly anything drifting nearby begins to roll toward the glow. Not because the glow reaches out or tugs on them, but because the shape of the sheet itself guides their motion. You rest in that metaphor, feeling how it softens the concept of gravity into something tender, almost affectionate. The universe, in its own silent way, responds to everything that exists by shifting its shape just enough to hold it. You let this understanding settle into your breathing. Each inhale feels like a small deepening, each exhale like a gentle release. The fabric of space-time around you seems to pulse with the same rhythm, subtle, patient, endlessly responsive. You imagine the energy in your own body, the quiet heat you carry, shaping space-time in the faintest of ways. The curve may be tiny, almost imperceptible, but it is still there, a soft impression left by your existence. As you drift further, you allow your awareness to expand beyond your body, beyond the room, beyond the planet beneath you. You picture Earth as a luminous presence resting on the cosmic sheet, creating a large, graceful well in space-time. The moon circles within that curved landscape, not pulled by an invisible string, but simply following the smoothest possible path along the bend created by Earth's mass. You imagine running your fingers along that curve, tracing the quiet flow of motion that keeps the moon in its endless, effortless glide. Your thoughts drift outward to the sun, immense and radiant, shaping space-time so deeply that planets move like ripples around a stone dropped into a still lake. You breathe into the idea that every orbit is a kind of falling, not downward, but forward, forever following the curved geometry of space-time. The elegance of this picture brings a soft warmth to your chest, an appreciation for the gentle, mathematical grace that governs cosmic motion. As you float in this awareness, you begin to sense that energy itself, not just mass, can bend space-time. Light, for all its weightlessness, carries energy. You picture a beam of light passing through the cosmic fabric, and you imagine the sheet dipping ever so slightly as the beam travels across it. Even something as delicate as a single photon contributes to the shape of space-time, shaping the very path it moves through. This thought fills you with a quiet wonder, because it means emptiness itself, the vacuum energy humming beneath existence, can shape space-time too. You feel this realization settling in you like a seed planted softly in fertile soil. If empty space carries energy, and you've already explored that it does, then empty space must also curve space-time. It must shape the universe from the inside out, gently influencing the architecture of everything. You picture the vacuum energy from earlier chapters as a faint glow spread evenly across the cosmic sheet, lifting it in some places, stretching it in others, creating a landscape defined by subtle, ever-present motion. Your awareness drifts to the idea of gravitational waves, ripples in space-time created when massive objects move in certain ways. You imagine two stars spiraling slowly around each other, their dance sending gentle waves through the cosmic fabric. These waves flow outward, stretching and squeezing space itself. Even though the effect is incredibly faint, the idea that the universe can ripple like water brings a soothing fluidity to your imagination. You rest in that sensation, letting it sway you gently from side to side. As you float, You picture space-time not as a vast, flat sheet but as a living ocean beneath everything. Energy becomes the wind brushing over its surface, shaping currents, forming swells, creating pathways that guide the movement of matter. You sense yourself drifting on this ocean, carried effortlessly by curves you cannot see but can feel in your breath. The universe becomes a place of softness, where every motion arises from the gentle yielding of the cosmic sea. You drift deeper into the idea that the vacuum, the simplest thing you can imagine, may hold the universe's most layered promises. In the quiet, you picture an expanse that seems like nothing at all. No particles, no atoms, no light, no breath, just stillness. And yet, beneath that stillness, something subtle moves. It is an undercurrent you can't see, but somehow you feel the soft vibration of it, like a distant hum behind a wall. You relax into the thought that emptiness is never truly empty, and that what seems silent may carry the soft beginnings of stories not yet told. You imagine yourself floating in this vacuum, not cold, not isolated, but gently held by its openness. The darkness around you is not a void but a cradle, spacious and patient. You begin to sense the faintest flicker of energy within that darkness. It is so delicate that it feels like a breath forming before it becomes a sound, or a memory returning before you fully recall it. This flicker is the essence of the vacuum's quiet promise. It is the suggestion that the universe is built upon a foundation that is never fully still, never completely finished, never closed. As you sink into this notion, you let your mind rest on the idea that vacuum energy might hold clues to the very beginning of everything. Before galaxies formed, before stars burned, before the first particles settled into patterns, there might have been only this quiet energy, a shimmering neutrality waiting for its moment. You picture it like a night sky before dawn, where the darkness feels full, loaded with potential. Nothing has happened yet, and yet everything is poised to unfold. The vacuum, in this view, is like the page before the first line of a story, empty at a glance but heavy with possibility. You breathe slowly as you picture the early universe, not as an explosion, not as chaos, but as a gentle blooming from this sea of vacuum energy. Perhaps the expansion began like a slow inhale, a subtle stretching that only later swelled into the cosmic rush. The vacuum could have been the quiet soil in which the seed of the universe first took root. That thought settles over you with a calming warmth, as if the cosmos itself grew from patience rather than violence. The vacuum's promise also extends forward, into the universe's distant future. When the stars finally fade, when galaxies stretch into near solitude, when even matter begins to thin into a faint mist, the vacuum remains. It is the backdrop that outlives the actors, the stage that continues long after the final lines. And yet, it is not a lonely survival. The vacuum carries the same quiet energy it always has, a steady presence that asks for no attention but shapes everything through its mere existence. You imagine wandering through that far future, through a universe where structures have softened and distances have stretched. The vacuum feels even more expansive than before, its gentle hum a constant companion. You wonder if this energy will guide the universe toward some graceful settling, or if it will keep the cosmos expanding, stretching the fabric of space-time into new forms. Whatever the outcome, the vacuum remains a witness, holding its promise like a lantern that never goes out. You let your thoughts sink into the idea that the vacuum's energy is not dramatic, not forceful, but persistent. It is the kind of presence that shapes reality through a long patience. You picture it as a soft tide that never recedes completely, washing over the universe in tiny, continuous waves. Each wave is too small to notice on its own, but together over unimaginable spans of time, they shape the shore of everything. There is something soothing about a force that works not through power, but through consistency. As you breathe out, you begin to feel the symmetry between yourself and this quiet energy. You, too, have an inner hum, thoughts that rise softly, emotions that move quietly beneath the surface, rhythms that exist even when you are resting. The vacuum is a cosmic reflection of that interior landscape. The stillness is not emptiness but depth. The quiet is not silence but subtle movement. And its promise is not about what already exists, but about what might yet be. You float further into the idea that vacuum energy holds unwritten pages. These pages are not filled with predictions or fixed futures, but with possibilities. The universe may continue to expand. New forms of structure may emerge. Unknown particles may flicker into existence. Entire realms of physics may unfold where none were expected. The vacuum is not a blank slate. It is a canvas already textured with patterns too fine to see but ready to guide what comes next. You picture this cosmic library of unwritten pages, each one shimmering faintly in the dim light of the vacuum. As you move through it, you feel no urgency to read them. Instead, you simply appreciate their presence. The knowledge that the universe has room to grow, to evolve, to reveal new wonders, is enough. These pages feel like promises not yet spoken, but already felt. The emptiness around you now feels almost comforting. You imagine resting in its vastness, letting it hold you like a calm sea. The vacuum offers space, not pressure, openness, not demand. You feel free to breathe deeply, free to let your thoughts slow, free to simply exist. In this space, you realize that the vacuum's promise is not just about cosmic beginnings or endings. It is also about the quiet strength found in stillness. The universe does not rush. It expands in its own time. It reveals its mysteries gently, layer by layer. You sense that the vacuum invites you to do the same, to allow moments of quiet to be fertile, not empty, to trust that stillness can hold potential, to know that even in the absence of activity, something meaningful is taking shape beneath the surface. As you drift, the vacuum's promise feels less like a scientific principle and more like a whisper in the dark, a whisper that says the universe is always more than it appears, that what seems empty may be full, that what feels still may be alive with motion, and that what looks finished may contain the beginnings of something new.